SportsGrid College Football today, Week 10. We are live. We do this each and every Saturday. It's a powwow, Joe. We get the people informed on everything they need to know right here on the SportsGrid Network. It's Donnie, Rightside. It's Joe, Lisi. And away we go, Joe. We're
Under
here.
the radar games. Not as good as last week. Last week set up with top 25 battles across the board, but this week will ultimately dictate conference championships, college football playoff odds, national championships. We do have some great games like the 12 o'clocker, Vanderbilt in Texas. We also have Penn State, Ohio State, so we're going to break all these games down. Curious to see how this weekend plays out.
You know what, Joe? It used to be in the past, right? Not only talk about 10, 15 years ago, you'd say, wow, man, first day of November, first week of November, maybe one or two games left, Joe. We got all November, all December, and all January to talk college football here as we wind it up in the national championship picture. Now, understand this. There are a lot of elimination games that are going to take place today, which is fantastic. So, like, okay, it's going to handle itself before we get to the 12. But, Joe, before we get to those 12 teams, coaches that figured that they would be leading their team into a college football playoff and a deep run are getting fired this year. James Franklin's already out, but last week we talked about it. Wonder what's going to happen in Death Valley if Brian Kelly takes another loss. We found out, Joe. He's out.
Yeah, and in the right move. I'll just say this. Yeah. You lead at halftime 15-14. You get absolutely kicked in the chops and get blown out by 25 points plus, and third straight loss this year. They're trending potentially to a 6-6 season. And all they did in Brian Kelly's tenure was regress from year to year to year. They knock off Nick Saban in year number one. They win the SEC West, and they can't even make a 12-team expanded college football playoff in 4 seasons at the helm, or 3.5 under Kelly's tutelage. I mean, this team needs really an attention getter. I don't know where they go potentially for their next head coach. Is it Lane Kiffin? You want to throw $12, $13 million at Kiffin? That's always a possibility. Summerall, they lost the other night to, in that matchup to UTSA. Or do you go back to potentially the mad scientist and Nick Saban, give him, complete control of the athletic department and see if he can turn it around? We'll see. But whatever they go, they're going to need a coach to hit the ground running, because Brian Kelly couldn't get it done in 3.5 years.
$50+ million, Joe, for him to go away. Now, understand this, too, because you thought probably at the elevated schools, or should I say the blue blood schools, right? LSU being one of those, where you say to yourself, well, it should be easier for a head coach to succeed here, because we're supposed to be a top 10 team on year-in-year basis, and we should be making playoffs. That's going to keep my job safe. But it ends up turning out to be extremely bad, because LSU's expectations are championship, which means if you don't even make the playoff, you're out. And $50 million is not even a detriment to some of these ADs to sort of get rid of you. Now, understand this. We saw some funny things play out this weekend, Joe, where the governor, the leadership is stepping in like, hey, what do you think about the AD of LSU? Right. Well, he's not picking this next coach. That AD, he already got shown the road, Joe. He's out.
Woodward, but here's the thing, and you can look at both sides to the equation. He hired Kim Mulkey. They won a national championship, hired the baseball coach. He oversaw the athletic program back in 2019 when they won a national championship, but he was also responsible for the buyout at Texas A&M with Jimbo Fisher, where they gave him basically, $60 million to walk away, coupled with that with Brian Kelly. And even though they're going to have a private donor potentially pay a majority of that, it's not going to utilize state funds. The perception, Donnie, is how much are we going to pay these coaches? And if you're responsible for not one but two now, how can we trust you to make the right decision in the future? And I'll just say this about LSU. When you look at a team and a program and an organization such as LSU that won a natty in 2019, potentially modern-day best team that we've seen with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson, the expectation is to win immediately. When you have teams like Indiana now and Vanderbilt potentially making the college football playoff, and these were schools looked at as the bottom feeders potentially of the SEC and the Big Ten respectively, if you're getting paid $9.5–10 million, that's great what you did in year one, but you have to make the college football playoff, and you have to compete for an SEC championship.
Let me ask you a question, though. Why didn't it work out for Brian Kelly?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, the perception was that, at Notre Dame, he couldn't get the quarterback. He got the quarterback. He got Jaden Daniels there that won a Heisman. The problem was the defense for a couple of years. We saw one of the worst defenses in all of Death Valley during Jaden Daniels' tenure there. They got Blake Baker, that was a good coordinator and overexceeded expectations at Missouri. But they weren't physical, Donnie. This was not an Alabama defense. This wasn't an Ohio State defense. We saw the front seven get kicked in the chops. Harold Perkins never elevated his game to the player that he was, freshman phenom, where they knocked off Arkansas and won an SEC West title. It's just this team was an $18 million roster, and they had talent on the offensive side of the ball. They just couldn't get the defense up to par, and whoever gets in there, I don't care if it's Kiffin or somebody else, they need to coach up that physicality on the defense. Mobile quarterbacks abused LSU for 2 straight years. They have to get it right in 2026.
And somebody's probably going to make a lot of money going to LSU. The question is going to be, will that be successful in being a national championship or at least getting to the college football playoff? In the SEC, Joe, it just means more, and that's where we're going to start right today, because in the SEC, we're kicking off at 12 o'clock, Joe. That's Vanderbilt, and it's Texas. You look at the line, it opened up at -3.5. Still sits at 3.5 and 3, depending on where you're shopping at today. 46.5 as a total. But, Joe, I want to let the people know right off the bat, what are the expectations for the starting quarterback today, Arch Manning, for Texas, in or out?
No, he's in. He came off the injury report late last night. We saw 2.5s in the market. Now we're seeing 3.5s across multiple books here in the tri-state area. So I expect Arch Manning to be a full go. Now, that's good, bad, or ugly, right? Because for basically 3 quarters, Arch Manning was, inconsistent against Mississippi State. That offense wasn't moving until the fourth quarter, till they trailed by 17 points. They gutted out another overtime win in back-to-back weeks against Miss State, depending upon where you got 6.5s or 7.5s. You either won or lost last week, but they need to win this game, and they got pushed to the limit last year in Nashville. They were a 21.5-point favorite in that game. They only won it by 3. Diego Pavi and that rushing attack are going to be the key. If Texas plays like they did in the fourth quarter, where they shut down Blake Shapen and Mississippi State, I think Texas should win and cover this game, but it's not going to be easy, Donnie. That's the matchup. Can Vanderbilt run on that front seven will ultimately dictate whether the Commodores win.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see also Arch Manning, how he performs today, because we do know by professional standards, Joe, quarterback, franchise guy, which again, you can have franchise guys in college. They're not playing the very next week here. They're going to sit that one out. So I did think it was interesting that Arch Manning, after concussion, got cleared late in the week. Are we having any issues here with Arch Manning starting? Do you think he's going to be 100%? I don't mean he might be medically cleared, Joe, but maybe some of those cobwebs still sticking around.
Yeah, it's possible. I will say this. If you looked at the matchup last week with Missouri, they were able to run the football, $170 on that front seven. They need Arch Manning's mobility in the RPO game. If he can run the football and work off of play action, they have success, or could have success, against Vanderbilt today. I don't know what to expect. I lean to Texas because they're at home, but in terms of backing Arch Manning props-wise, I would take a wait-and-see approach to see how he looks in the first quarter.
Now, how we got here is always how I like to take a look at it, because in the SEC, you don't get very many layups on a week-to-week basis, Joe. You take a look at the last 3 weeks for Vanderbilt, which, again, included a bye, Alabama, LSU, and Missouri, and now on the road to take on Texas. Is that just too much of a hill to climb, week after week after week, Joe? And also those past 2 games, LSU, Missouri, 2.5 to 3-point spreads. Today, 3-point spread. You're in a dogfight every week. Sooner than later, you're not going to get the breaks.
Yeah, it's possible, but they're playing with house money. Nobody expects this team to step up. They have the goal line stand against Missouri that really changed the momentum in the second half of that matchup. Bo Perbula goes down. But the front seven for Vanderbilt, only giving up 101 rushing yards per game, 3.5 yards per carry. That's the matchup. We've seen inconsistency out of Texas in the rushing attack. They're only rushing for $139 on the ground. Last year, they were closer to 160. That'll be the matchup. You need Arch Manning mobile and RPO in this ballgame. But I will say this. Every time Vanderbilt runs for over 200 this year, undefeated, 5-0, and they've won by an average margin of victory, Donnie, of 28.4 points per game. That is the Vanderbilt key to success today on the road.
It's a knockout game, too, for me, because you take a look at Texas, Joe, number 20th in the country. Quickly on this topic, they dropped to 6-3 with a loss. They're out. What about Sarkisian?
Well, Sarkisian came out last week, right? Jimmy Sexton and was already putting out feelers to the NFL. I mean, you can't. I mean, this guy's getting paid $11 million, Donnie. He's got to step up.
All the money in the world, the fan support, everything he has at Texas. You're supposed to make the college football playoff and go deep. We'll see if he can do that this year. Let's keep it in the SEC and head over, Joe, to Rocky Top next. College football today, right here on the...
You see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still It's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of, I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Genty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Genty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than it is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does
They'll
he
be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
Are they chanting fire? Brian
Probably.
Kelly.
Yeah,
Clap,
why?
clap,
It would
clap,
be.
clap,
It
clap.
would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid College Football Today right here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Donnie Rightside. He's Joe Lisi. It is Week 10 going over the biggest games. And sometimes, Joe, it just leads down that path of the SEC and a lot to be determined, which means elimination games before we even get to the college football playoff. Now, Joe, who said, but the regular season's going to be meaningless out here?
I said it.
Why?
Well, because...
What, are you an idiot?
No, no, some might call me that now. It's possible. No, Donnie, the more expansion that we have, it does water down the regular season.
Doesn't.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. This is an elimination game.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite games for the day. I do believe that Oklahoma potentially could bounce back. They got exposed by Ole Miss as a 5.5-point home favorite. Mateer hasn't looked in rhythm, especially in the passing attack. Hasn't really thrown for over 200 yards since he's come back against Texas and that thumb surgery. But this is an opportunity, I believe, to exploit a Tennessee defense, giving up 30 points per game. We saw Kentucky put up 30-plus in the victory last week against that front seven and that defense. I think Oklahoma bounces back, and I do expect a much better effort today with their defense.
By the way, if we do look at the line itself, right, Oklahoma at Tennessee today, opened up at 3.5, Joe, now sits at 2.5. If you're just reading the line, we've been around the block quite a bit here. That is a stone-cold Oklahoma line only getting 2.5 on the road at Rocky Top. For me, I look at this game at 54.5, 55.5, depending where you're shopping, and say, you know what? I do think we get points, but I'm willing to fall into the trap, Joe. Ticket count here roughly 50%. But again, just looking at the line, that's a lot of respect for Oklahoma, who hasn't played great football at this point, and an offense on Tennessee that can move it. The question marks for me, Joe, come up, the quarterback position. I think I have the better quarterback on Tennessee today. I do.
Well, I mean, he's definitely playing like that with Joey Aguilar averaging well over 300 passing yards per game. They're also rushing for 188 yards on the ground. They have a three-headed monster with Lewis Bishop and Star Thomas in the rushing attack. Can they have that type of consistency up against that front seven in Oklahoma that's only giving up 84 rushing yards per game? I think, and I'll just say this, Joey Aguilar's a gunslinger. You take the good, the bad, and the ugly. He's performing at an elite level this year. I mean, this offense is averaging 45 points per game. If they get humming against Oklahoma at home, they're going to be very difficult to upend in this matchup. But you saw Ole Miss extend that defense over the top. Can Aguilar do the same? I'm not so sure. Again, Lane Kiffin had a perfect game plan last week. This is still an Oklahoma defense holding opposing quarterbacks to 56% completion percentage, less than 200 yards per game. They play very solid third down defense. I think that's the recipe. And I think Mateer can expose this defense in Tennessee's on the perimeter. Hasn't run as much in recent weeks. Last week was a wet track in Norman. This week, with an elimination game and everything on the line, I expect to get the best version of John Mateer. Tennessee, over the past couple of seasons, dominant at home, 16-2 overall. But I think the more experienced quarterback with the better defense on the road in this particular spot, I'm willing to take the 2.5. Did take them plus 126 on the money line. One of my better picks today.
Seasons are on the line here. And again, both of these teams with 2 losses. Like, you are going to get some SEC teams in the college football playoff with 2 losses. You're not going to get them in at 3. It's just not going to work out. So, Joe, let me ask you this question. Like, John Mateer coming into the season, high expectations. Pre-injury, John Mateer may be winning the Heisman Trophy. I'm not saying he's been bad since he's been back, but when you have that pressure of one more loss can do you in, I'm hearing, chirps that maybe Michael Hawkins Jr. should be the starting quarterback today, or if Mateer struggles, he comes in because, as we like to say, Joe, there is no tomorrow if you lose this football game today.
No, it's all hands on deck. I mean, and I told you when we broke down the Texas game about 4 weeks ago that I thought Oklahoma did a disservice to the team because even though Mateer wanted to play, let's say, they could have held back Mateer to potentially a second half, allowed Michael Hawkins to play, who was the healthier quarterback, and at the very worst, you could sell it that Mateer wasn't in the lineup to where if they were an at-large team down the road, that would always be in the back pocket. John Mateer didn't play against Texas, and now we're at 100%, whereas we saw a couple of years ago Jordan Travis and Florida State be left out in the college football playoff because they were on a backup quarterback. I thought the benefit would be to Brett Venables in that situation. They didn't do it. He hasn't thrown for over 200 yards, but they did gut out a road win a couple of weeks ago against South Carolina, right? They dominated that game 26-7, and we saw South Carolina push Alabama to the limit this past Saturday. Again, it all hinges on the defense. If Mateer's not playing well, they could go to Michael Hawkins, a better runner, but it does hinge on this Oklahoma defense to potentially win this game on the road.
Yeah, you take a look, too. I mean, the defense has been good for Oklahoma, and rightfully so. And also, there's no real bad losses on either one of these teams' 2 losses, Joe. You take a look at Tennessee, you lose to Alabama, and you lose to Georgia. Well, welcome to the party for the SEC. But also at the same time, you flip it over to Oklahoma, Joe. You lose to Texas 23-6. That's the game where you bring back your starting quarterback. Maybe a little bit too early and couldn't function as well as you wanted to on offense, but there's no shame in your game in losing 34-26 to Ole Miss at this point. So I do think we get a really good game. But for me, Joe, my money, Rocky Top. We're singing it all day long down there.
I disagree. I really like Oklahoma in this matchup. Again, now they're going to have to force turnovers, something they didn't do against Ole Miss and Trinidad Chambliss. They're -6 in turnover margin. But again, you just look at the defense and how they've performed over against mobile quarterbacks, against dominant rushing attacks. They've been pretty solid throughout the regular season. Again, holding opposing offenses to 2.5 yards per carry. On the flip side, you look at Tennessee. They have been susceptible over the top. They're allowing 230 passing yards per game, 135 yards on the ground, and more importantly, 30 points per game, Donnie. To me, that's the matchup. Can Blaylock, can those running backs get success on first and second down, put Mateer into manageable third downs? I think they could do it. And here's the other factor. Kentucky, whose offense was absolutely atrocious, put up 30-plus points on Tennessee last week. That's why I go with the better team on the defensive side of the ball. To me, that's Oklahoma. I think they win it outright.
Taking a look here at some of those odds, Joe. Oklahoma to make the playoffs at a plus 630 price, which is crazy high. Same thing now, Tennessee at a plus 310. The reason why you take a look at Oklahoma and Tennessee, they're in the SEC, Joe. They have 2 losses. One of these teams is going to have 3 today, but the rest of the schedules, like if we just look at Oklahoma, Joe, Tennessee today, Alabama, then Missouri, then LSU. It's almost like they win this game, they're still not going to the college football playoff for me.
Well, that's why you see the 630 price, right? LSU potentially could be checked out. We don't know about Missouri. Bo Prabula had an ankle injury. He could be done for the rest of the regular season. So those 2 games potentially all of a sudden now might be in favor, and they might be favored for Oklahoma if they get this victory. Alabama's not going to be easy, but let's not forget last year they dominated in Tuscaloosa 24-3. So, again, they match up well against Alabama. We'll see how it plays out. very difficult matchup today, but I think they steal it.
Man, top to bottom, the SEC is absolutely bringing it this season here. And again, an elimination game on deck. We're going to flip it over here, Joe, to the Big Ten in just a few moments here. Penn State and Ohio State. At the beginning of the season, you might have thought that this would be two top 5 teams playing. Not the case. Come on back and find out why.
You see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still. It's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of, I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Genty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Genty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than it is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does
They'll
he
be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
Are they chanting fire? Brian
Probably.
Kelly.
Yeah,
Clap,
why?
clap,
It would
clap,
be.
clap,
It
clap.
would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid College Football Today. Donnie Rightside and Joe Lisi making our way down through the biggest games of the day. And one of the games we're going to talk about right now is in the Big Ten, which we thought could have had the possibilities, Joe, as a game of the year. Quite frankly, it's only a game of the day because Ohio State is the #1 team in the country, and so many things are going to wrap around this game. But the Penn State Nittany Lions come in. This week, Joe, they were as high as getting 20.5 to 21 points. The public and the Sharps coming back in here on Ohio State, or excuse me, on Penn State. Ohio State down to 18.5 as a favorite in the total, Joe. 44.5. Why is that? Ohio State's defense, Joe, been phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. They're only giving up 5 points per game, Donnie. I mean, unbelievable matchup led by that front seven. Matt Patricia's done a fantastic job. #1 ranked third down defense in all of FBS, holding opposing offenses to 21%. Going to be very difficult to run on that defense today, and that's been the MO and success of Penn State. Now, from the series perspective, it's been all Ohio State. They've won 8 straight in the series, the last 4 by an average margin of victory of 9.2 points per game. Picked up this win last year in Happy Valley. They won it by 7 points after trailing 10-0 in the first half. This team is going to expose Penn State today. Now, what are you going to get out of Penn State? Interim staff, Jim Knowles comes back, the former defense coordinator that led that team to a national championship. The problem that I have is, what is the identity of Penn State in this ballgame? You're going to need some chunk plays to throw. They're only averaging 185 passing yards per game. Can they extend plays on third down? I don't think they can. I lean Ohio State. I'm not going to bet it. Minus the 18.5. I'll just say the last time that we saw 20.5s in the market was back in 2019. That was the week after Penn State lost the 8 overtime game to Illinois. They came back with a good effort, but they didn't win it. They lost it 28-17, got the cover. So Penn State loses these games typically, but covers the big spreads. Not in this matchup. I think Ohio State rolls.
I'll tell you what's crazy. You look at the Ohio State schedule, Joe, and you say to yourself, well, what has that defense actually done? Only one game this year a team has reached double digits on them, and that was Illinois 34-16 in that loss. The other games, Texas 7 points, Grambling 0, Ohio 9, Washington 6, Minnesota 3, Wisconsin 0 last week. And also understand this. 2 out of the past 3 games, Joe, Julian saying 326 in the air against Minnesota and 393 in the air last week alone against Wisconsin. Everything is clicking on all cylinders. And you're right about it. If you are Penn State, you're not heading into this game going, it's going to be fun, Joe. Let's get into a shootout with Ohio State. You can't shoot it out against that defense. You're going to have to ground and pound and wind that clock here, which is why that total is listed at so low. Now, before, James Franklin gets fired and Drew Aller gets injured, that offense was really struggling anyway. Last week, 25-24 loss to Iowa, but they have been competitive in their scores, Joe. So we look at that game itself. 3 touchdowns, let's call it, as an advantage here to Ohio State. I actually think they cover it today, Joe. I do.
Yeah, I mean, here, again, when I look at the football matchup, Donnie, and you want to see the difference this year, just statistically, of Penn State versus last year, right? So last year, they averaged close to 200 rushing. They were averaging right around 202 per game. They're only down in the rushing attack about 40 yards, 169 rushing yards per game, right? You look at the front 7 last year. Dominant with Tom Allen at the defensive coordinator. They only allowed 101 rushing yards per game. They're coming to this matchup with Jim Knowles giving up close to $160 on the ground. So they're getting exposed. And when you look at Julian Sain in this offense for Ohio State now, they're starting to hit stride. Julian Sain is under the radar because of all the other quarterbacks in FBS like Mendoza and like Ty Simpson. But this offense is averaging 279 passing yards per game. They're running the football with Bo Jackson and C.J. Donaldson for over 170 yards per game. They're balanced. They're converting on third downs. And if you say, okay, if Penn State can't throw the football with Ethan Gruckenmeyer, right, he threw for 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and has only completed 59%. They're going to run the football. Okay, great. Ohio State over the last 6 games of the regular season right now is holding opposing offenses to 72 rushing yards per game. So if you can't run the football, that means long third downs, and that's a long day for Penn State. And I'll just say this. The MO of Penn State, they have never had an elite quarterback and elite wide receivers. And that, unfortunately, that's why they won't win a Big Ten championship this year and might not for the next few seasons.
Being one-dimensional against Ohio State is going to get you busted out because you take a look. Drew Aller, again, he's not going to play in this game, but the high for Penn State, even including Ruckenmeyer last week, is 217 in the air. You can't throw for 150 yards against Ohio State and say we're going to ground and pound it. Now, I do think the MO is if we want to keep it close, it's Katron Allen. I like his rushing prop to the over today, but understand this. If that offensive passing game doesn't work and Ohio State understands it's not working, they are just going to sink their teeth into this offense, and it's going to go backwards.
Yeah, and think about last year. They start out with a guns a-blazing. They get the turnover. They're up 10-0 at home. And Drew Aller still last year only threw for 120. So what is this staff going to do? You have to break tendency in order to cover this line. You cannot be one-dimensional. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it in Penn State.
But a Big Ten play, Joe, lost by 6, 5, 1, and 1. Can they be competitive today? We'll find out. But the best of the rest is up next right here on the Grid.
You see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still. It's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Genty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Genty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does he
They'll be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
are they chanting fire?
Probably.
Kelly, clap,
it would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
one playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carden Show. Only on SportsGrid.
Talking college football on a Saturday. Who does it better than Donnie Rightside and Joe Lisi in the SportsGrid Network? Right here, it's what we do. And now we get started on tradition here, Joe. There's always a neutral site game that we look forward to every single year in the SEC. You know which game it is, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Georgia and Florida. That is played in where, Joe?
It's played in Jacksonville.
That's not really. By the way, I do understand, like, okay, we're going to play a neutral site. Georgia ever like, you know what? Can we get this game in like the Mercedes Dome?
Come on.
I mean, why not?
Come
why are we
on.
playing in Florida? It's not even fair.
Years.
Like, Athens is way farther for their fan base to go.
Matter. Yeah, I don't like the neutral site games, but it's been since the last, 40 years, 50 years since Buck Bellew was there.
By the way,
come on.
What do they call it now? They don't call it the outdoor What is it, though? Do we have anybody in the back understand what that is?
The largest party, the largest...
It can't be just called the world's largest outdoor party, is it?
That's what, something like that.
Look, Joe. Yeah. Come on now. That's not right. We got to get tradition, Joe. Tradition growing up. Eric Zier in this game. All the boys going back. The Herschel Walker in this game. Yeah, Terrell Davis here. By the way, do you remember the biggest celebration where No Sean Marino goes over the top, scores a touchdown, and Georgia floods on the field?
I remember.
Almost causes a big melee right there. Let's get back to
1997. Robert Edwards. Sliced and diced that team.
By the way, his name sliced and diced on the beach, Joe. Do you know that? I mean, that's another day, another story. But let's get back to the biggest game of the day in the SEC. Well, maybe not, but it is a big deal to us. 3:30 start, Joe. This line has been interesting all week. 7s and 7.5, Joe. They ain't breaking. It's not going under 7. Florida without a head coach, Billy Napier gone. We know the Gators have an extreme amount of talent. Georgia is the better football team, Joe. It is neutral site. Is Florida hang around in this game?
No, one of my two best bets of the day are Georgia and Oklahoma. Wow. I really like Georgia here, and I understand Georgia's played down to the level of competition. Potentially, they struggled with Auburn, had to pull it out in the second half. They struggled with Ole Miss, had to pull that out and just covered. They did cover in both of those games, but I just think they're up against it when you just talk about Florida. Does Florida have talent? Absolutely. Can Florida in a rivalry game step up? Absolutely. But with the firing of Billy Napier, the fact that you have an extra week of preparation, people think that maybe Florida will be up in this game. I take it as a detriment. I would much rather play the week after Billy Napier got fired as opposed to sitting around thinking about your future. On the flip side, you have a Georgia team that's not just focused on an SEC championship. They're focused on a potential college football national championship. They're running the football effectively. They pounded the rock 2 weeks ago for 221 on that front seven of Ole Miss. They're averaging 190 rushing yards per game. Gunnar Stockton playing lights out. Zachariah Branch. You look at Colby Young, that passing attack, I think could get going. Nate Frazier's been more involved in that offense along with Bowens. That, to me, is the difference. And I think that front seven of Georgia steps up with a statement type of game. We talked about DJ Lagway and the inefficiencies of Florida. I think it shows through today. They can't convert on third down. Averaging less than 35% in their third down offense. That's a concern. And turnovers, I think, will deal to Florida in this matchup. Again, I think Georgia comes into this game focused. Week off will benefit them. They've won 4 straight in the series by an average margin of victory at 21.5 points per game. Won last year by 14 points. If Napier and this team had 4 or 5 wins, Donnie, I would say different animal. Georgia, to me, rolls by double digits.
DJ Lagway. It's going to be on his shoulders, say, if they want to pull an upset off against the Georgia Bulldogs. Joe, we'll keep it moving here. Maybe everybody's favorite public underdog today. I know Joe's not going to fall into this trap. It's Miami Hurricanes taking on LSMU. 10.5-point favorite, 10-point favorite. 6 out of every 10 tickets here coming in on SMU. That line starting to creep lower and lower. A total of 50.5. Miami got the cobwebs out last week, Joe. 42 unanswered. They might get 42 unanswered today on SMU.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
now,
come on now. Buy into it.
I'm not buying into it. I'll just say this. In the offseason, this line had SMU favored by 2.5 points.
Oh, my goodness.
And we know how dominant SMU prior to this year has been at home. You're talking about this line being 10.5, as high as 12.5 earlier in the week because of the disappointing road performance against Wake Forest. They laid 2.5. They lost it outright 13-12. But this is still a front seven that's very physical in run support. Holding opposing offenses, SMU is to 120 rushing yards per game, 3.6 yards per carry, 35% third down defense. You have a veteran quarterback in Kevin Jennings. The fact that they lost last week, Donnie, and again, this is going to be their Super Bowl now. They beat Clemson on the road, battle-tested team. I don't know if they win it, but you want to give me 10.5 points with SMU. I think they're in this game from start to finish, and I'll just say this. Miami last year on the road, Syracuse lost, Georgia Tech lost. They struggled with Louisville. We've seen Carson Beck during his tenure at Georgia struggle in road environments. Give me the 10.5 with the Mustangs. I think they're live.
Malachi Tony, big game today for those Hurricanes here. We'll see if they can cover that double digits here. Texas Tech and Kansas State. The Little Apple, the center of attention today. But how about this, Joe? Texas Tech comes in -7.5 and a total of 51.5. Any quarterback situations we need to know about for Texas Tech today?
Yeah, so Will Hammond, the backup that was starting for Baron Morton, he's out for the year, ACL. He won't be back for 9 months. They're going to be looking for a quarterback in the offseason. The former starter and QB1, Baron Morton, is back. Yeah. But I have to be honest, Donnie, when I saw this line, it opened up at 5.5 midweek or Sunday night. Saw 7.5 immediately. And you're talking about a series perspective where K-State has owned Texas Tech. They haven't played since 2023. But from the series, K-State won 8 straight against the Red Raiders. Typically, Texas Tech struggles, but I expect a bounce-back effort. The fact that we're seeing this line kick out from 5.5 to 7.5, a little bit intriguing. I mean, I'm not betting this game, but I'll just say now I think I lean to Texas Tech with Morton coming back.
Let's get to this next one, which I've started to turn into a fan, Joe. The Hoosiers, usually it's about basketball, right? It's about football. Now, that is a football state. Look at the Colts in the NFL. Look at Indiana and look at Notre Dame. What a state that is. Throw Purdue out right here. They don't even play football in college at this point right now. But if I understand this point correctly, Joe, 22.5 is the opening number today, or after this week for Indiana. Now sits at 20.5 and 21 and a total of 50.5. Cignetti is one of those James Franklin on steroid type of guys. Like, I could never stand James Franklin. I didn't even like Cignetti last year, but I love what he's preaching now. And the one thing I understand is he takes great joy in humiliating the other football team, Joe. No line is high enough for me not to take it for Indiana. I love Indiana to blow the doors off Maryland today.
We're in disagreement.
Come on.
Listen, and
you don't even know any players on Maryland, do you?
Malik Washington.
All right. Doesn't play there? I don't know. Yeah.
Hang on. So Maryland starts 4-0.
Yeah.
They lost 3 games over the past 4 weeks by an average margin of 3.3 points per game. They've only lost by a total of 10 points. They went toe-to-toe with Nebraska, went toe-to-toe with Washington, covered both of those games but lost. They're still very physical in the front seven. Again, we saw this line Sunday open at 17.5. Donnie, they bet it immediately up to 21.5, 22. Yeah. Now we're seeing it settle back in. I like Maryland plus the points. Again, I think they can run the football potentially. I don't know if they could go toe-to-toe in a shootout with Indiana. I think a lower scoring game favors the Terps, but they're plus 11 in turnover margin, Maryland. One of the best turnover margins in all of college football. I think that matters. I think their front seven is athletic enough to play within the number. This is one of my better dogs for the weekend. I actually like Maryland to be live today, Tom.
Should be like in Miami. Should be like in Indiana. Road teams favored, Joe. What could go wrong? Absolutely nothing here. How about this, though? Cincinnati is a road team today, Joe. They're not favored. They're taking on the Utah Utes. This line opened up at FanDuel, Joe. 7.5. Every other outlet, 10.5 now, even up to 11s at some spots here. Utah at home against the Bearcats. 55.5 total this one, Joe. What are we looking at here?
Well, I was very impressed with Cincinnati. If you didn't think Cincinnati was for real, they shut down Sawyer Robertson and Baylor last week only as a 3.5, 4-point favorite at home. This team can run the football with Taiwan Walker, the former Wisconsin transfer. They could also throw it. Sorsby is a gutty quarterback. They're going to be without their starting running back, Simon, today, but it doesn't matter. The physical offensive line, Dampierre is 100%. Salt Lake City, I think you're seeing that line. I really like the over, Donnie. I think we could blow through this total. Sidewise, I would take a shot with the Bearcats.
The muss out there, Joe. 56.5 is that opening number. 55.5 is now down on the total. Utah this season, Cincinnati. By the way, who's the favorite in that conference for you? Like, who's your favorite team in that conference?
I would I still think Texas Tech now because of their defense. But again, you see, I would have said Arizona State if Levitt was playing. He's out for the rest of the year.
How about that? Favorite team for Joe in that conference? He just gave you the answer. Favorite coach for Joe Lisi? You know who it is? It's Coach Terry Bowden. He's coming up next. Stay tuned.
You see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still. It's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of, I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Genty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Genty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than it is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does he
They'll be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
Are they chanting fire, Brian
probably.
Kelly?
Yeah,
Clap,
why,
clap,
it would
clap,
be
clap,
it
clap.
would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid College Football Today. It's a Saturday. No better place to be than right here on the SportsGrid Network. It's Donnie Rightside. It's Joe Lisi. Now we bring in our favorite coach. It's Terry Bowden. And when we talk to Coach Terry, that means there's big games on the card today, Coach. How we feeling?
Oh, great football games right now. And the thing is, there are a lot of games that we're not really watching. They'll decide whether somebody's still in the hunt for their conference championship game. So there's games every day, all day long for the conference championship or the national playoffs.
Elimination games is what we call them here. The first week of November. Fantastic stuff, Coach. Let's get right to the business here in the SEC. Vanderbilt is going to take on Texas. The favorites in this game, Texas between 3 to 3.5 points in a total, listed at 46.5. As a previous coach in the SEC, how do you deal with a player that you might not think is going to play for the other team like Arch Manning? He was cleared late last night from a concussion. What's the protocols for you as the coach going up against that team, trying to hide their quarterback situation? And how do you think this game plays out?
Well, I just don't think at Vanderbilt you're going to make a big issue out of it. You're going to cover and play whoever is starting at quarterback, and so they've done a great job of adapting to the styles of every team they've played. Their defense is playing very well, although Pavia is getting all the recognition and all the discussion about whether Arch Manning will play. They now say he can play. I suppose that he will. I don't think it's the answer whether he does or not. The quarterback that matters is Diego Pavia. He will play. We're not sure how Texas is going to play this day, but we're pretty sure how Vanderbilt's going to play. And it's about a 2.5-point difference. And you know what? If I've got Pavia and we've got the ball and we're winning, he'll get one more first down to end the game. If he's got to get down there and get a score, he'll get one more drive to get a score. I'm going for Vanderbilt and the points against Texas.
Coach, when you see Texas in back-to-back weeks struggle with the likes of Kentucky and Mississippi State, they were on life support in both of those games and had to pull them out in overtime. Right. What does Sark do differently playing at home and knowing that he's got an elimination game? Does he change up the offensive game plan potentially, especially if Arch is a little banged up?
Well, I think offensively that they've got to do what they do. You know, with so many great athletes they've got, I think they needed to have a good chewing out. With the talent they have, it's not like they're playing their best. If they play their best, they should not have these struggling football games. Now, defensively, they've got to be very conscious of how to play smart football, play assignment football. They've got to focus on how Vandy runs their offense. It's a really misdirection, spread option offense. But the main thing, he's got to get those guys ready to play because they have good enough football players, but they are very inconsistent at Texas.
Oklahoma versus Tennessee, Coach. Another SEC tilt today with a game that opened up around 3.5. It's below a field goal now as a slight favorite to Tennessee at home, -2.5. Oklahoma versus Tennessee on Rocky Top, Coach. What are we thinking here?
Boy, I tell you, this is one of those something's got to give games. You got the number top 10 offense at Tennessee versus the top 10 defense at Oklahoma. But I really think the key to this game is John Mateer. Is he healthy enough to give us a performance like he gave us early in the season before his injury? Now, he hasn't been playing as well because of that, but I think he's ready to play. And because Tennessee gives up, they've given up 24 or more points to every offensive points to every FBS team they played. So Tennessee will get their points, but I think if Mateer is healthy, and my contacts say he is, he'll have a great day, and I'm going with Oklahoma on this one to win this game.
How do you contain on the defensive side of the ball, Coach, Joey Aguilar and that Tennessee offense that's humming right now? They're averaging 45 points per game. I know you went up against Aguilar in your days in the Sun Belt, but what does he bring to the table, and what could Oklahoma do to contain him?
Well, you can talk to anybody in Tennessee and Knoxville. The difference is his accuracy, and it's on the deep ball accuracy. So you've got to be disciplined not to give up the deep ball. He's going to get yardage in between the 20s, but you don't get points completing passes between the 20s. You got to go deep ball. So the one thing Aguilar is doing that they've missed for the last couple of years at Tennessee is accuracy on the deep ball. Oklahoma cannot give that big play up and give them 7 quick points, or that spread's going to go right down.
Speaking with Coach Terry Bowden right here, going over a really good slate in college football today. None bigger, maybe for Ohio State as the number 1 team in the country. How many points are they going to give up against Penn State, Coach? 17.5 as a favorite for Ohio State, 44.5 as a total. That elite defense comes to play. Can Penn State hang around in this one?
Golly, you know what? That's the only question. This game was circled 2 months ago. It's now the only question is will Ohio State win by 3 touchdowns? And that is the only question. And I have them winning by at least 3 touchdowns. Because one, you have everything. You've got a new coach coming in, or an interim coach. You got a 4-game losing streak. You got a backup quarterback who was raised 20 minutes from Ohio Stadium. How nervous is he going to be in his second start? But you've got a defense at Ohio State that gives up 5.9 points. You don't have to score a lot of points to win by 3 touchdowns when your defense is that good. So Ohio State is checking all the boxes. They'll win this game going away. They'll win this game because of the way they play on both sides of the ball.
Coach, you and I had talked about how bad or how much Penn State's defense has fallen off with Jim Knowles. I mean, what do you feel is the big difference for the change and why Knowles can't get it right this year?
Well, you know what? I mean, when you start losing ball games, defense is an attitude. It's a want-to thing. It's a want to knock somebody down. It's 11 people ferociously to the ball, reckless abandon. All those things apply. And when you lose your edge, the first place I think it shows is on defense. You don't get people to the ball as quickly. Guys don't play quite as hard. And it's hard to get them winning football games. And so that's a little bit of what's wrong with Penn State, although they're not scoring very many points easy. They have kind of just lost their ship. They've lost their vision since the early losses and the coaching change.
We take a look at college football, Coach. The landscape is ever-changing. Teams changing conferences here. Some of those rivalries that we see are going away, but this one's not going anywhere. It's Georgia and Florida in the SEC. Neutral site game in Jacksonville, Florida. 7.5 to 7s, Coach, have been available all week long, which leads us to believe that Florida could be a live underdog. Georgia and Florida today. Who has the keys here?
Well, I mean, Florida's always got the talent to keep it close, and I think that's one thing Florida can do usually. But this is still called, whether we're supposed to say it or not, the largest outdoor cocktail party in the world. But when you lose the head of the household, it's hard to have fun at the cocktail party. And they lost the head of their team, and their team has had a tough time going through that. They were very close to their head coach. I know the fans are quick to get rid of a guy. Coaches and assistant coaches and players don't. So I really think that as well as Florida plays, that Georgia has a commitment now. They want to play for a championship. They want to not hear about Alabama. So the secret to this team is Kirby Smart. He'll make all the right adjustments. He'll have that team ready to go. And now that it's into this latest part of the season, I think they play their best game, and I'm going with Georgia on this one.
There's Coach Bowden filling us in on the information that we need to know for an important Saturday in college football. We get Coach on each and every Saturday. He'll be on next week with us, Coach. Thanks for your time today. We'll be right back.
You see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still. You know, it's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of, I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Genty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Genty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does
They'll
he
be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
Are they chanting fire, Brian
probably.
and Kelly?
Yeah,
Clap, clap,
it would
clap,
be
clap,
it
clap.
would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid College Football Today on a Saturday. No better place to be, as we continue to tell you. It's Donnie Rightside. It's Joe Lisi. Now, look, the camera's on the center. Do you want me to slide over a little bit closer to you and tell you a little ditty tale here?
God, you love this segment.
Not ditty
This is
parties here. We're talking about a little ditty called Jack and Diane.
You feel like
right?
you put your personalized stamp on this guy.
Because it grows every week, Joe. Like you're
grows?
You're like a crypto guy, right? You say, you know what? You sell high, you buy low, and that's the way you get down to business. Well, I told the people months ago now, Joe, not we, months ago now, Notre Dame is the team that you need to back here. And why is that, Joe? Because they lose their first 2 games, and they continue on the climb. Like North Face. I think I'm sponsored by North Face at this point right now. Climbing up so many mountains, so high. Me and the leprechauns here getting busy. Look at that graph, Joe. If you were just buying in as crypto guy and buying the dip right there, millionaire. You're not worried about booking any hours, Joe.
I have nothing against Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. I think
Sounds
he's
like you do.
I think
Sounds
he's a
like you do.
fantastic head coach.
I don't know.
I love Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love. I love how C.J. Carr's played, and I bet them week 1 against Miami.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've wished or rooted against this team to fall off a cliff just so I could stick it to you. If it's not this week, and it's certainly not going to be this week against Boston College, that's 1-7, and Bill O'Brien's potentially on the outside looking in. But hopefully it's against Pitt next week.
30.5 points today on the road for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And by the way,
this rivalry used to mean something.
Good.
I mean, back in the day.
Give me a couple quarterbacks there. Give me a couple Foleys, huh?
Glenn Foley.
There you go.
I mean, obviously, did Doug Flutie play against Notre Dame back in the day?
I'm sure they probably played.
Matt Ryan did.
Right?
Yeah. Matt Ryan. Mike Cloud. Remember him, the running back? Number 21, Mike Cloud from Boston College. So
Golden helmets versus golden helmets,
Pete
Joe?
Kendall.
Yeah, Pete Kendall's name they could bring up there. Who? William Green?
Yeah, Willie Green.
There we go. Bring back these games from the past. By the way, we used to have like topics where Joe would have like LSU out there and, like the Tiger and he's upset. Like, I'm glad all the funds now get spent on Notre Dame on a weekly basis.
You forget you had Miami until we didn't. All of a sudden, you had
my Notre Dame's always been here, pal.
Until
Notre
they
Dame's
lost to
always been
Louisville,
here.
all of the pictures of Donnie with the U on.
Let me tell you right now,
they went
people out
down in
there,
the garbage.
If we're crypto smashing right now, Miami versus Notre Dame national championship game. Put it on. What's that odds?
You should bet
What's the
that.
odds right now?
I couldn't. I don't even know if you can get that.
Local right now.
I don't
What do you
think
got?
they have in the tri-state. I don't think they have individual matchups. You'd have to look across across multiple books.
Yep.
Could be on a predictive market.
Could be on Kalshi. You never know. Poly market, maybe Joe Lisi market. You could come up with that, man. Could be good stuff.
Boston College won their first game. They have fallen off a cliff. They've had quarterback issues. Dylan Lonergan wasn't the answer. Grayson James wasn't the answer. All these NFL guys that want to come back to college. Shout out to Bill Bell. They got the victory last night by 2. It was a 2.5-point dog. They dominated by 17 points. Finally, maybe you might have something to brag about if they can get back to 500, but Bill O'Brien's not the answer in Chestnut Hill. Certainly wasn't a reason why Thomas Castellanos stayed. He went out the door to Tallahassee. So, again, can they cover the 28, now up to 30.5? Yeah. You have to. No? I mean,
the problem is you're not even running out the clock with Notre Dame. You're handing it off to unbelievable running backs all game long. Take care of the football.
Hear me out on
score.
this. Jeremiah Love, I know you love this. Anytime touchdown.
Love it.
Minus 750
it sounds like you should be putting mortgage payments on that right now.
Darion Price has a better price at plus, I think, minus 320.
There's people out there probably want to pay, car bills for their daughter. That's how you do it today, Joe.
Can I have a kick,
price,
too?
Bang.
I'll kick it. Give me a kick.
No, we're not giving you a kick. We're going to kick you off the show in about 2 seconds here. Purdue, Michigan. 21-point favorite for Michigan over Purdue. He used to celebrate these type of games. Should be a walk in the park for Michigan today.
Yeah, Michigan, they got the win. They dominated Michigan State. Purdue still learning and feeling their way out with Barry Odom. Again, this is a Bryce Underwood, Haynes matchup. I mean, Haynes is minus 420 to score a touchdown in this game. Bryce Underwood, I think, is minus 190. He's got better value. I did throw him in a huge parlay for touchdown scores today. Again, I just think Michigan way too physical. I think we can get this total, though. I like the over in this game. I think that, again, Purdue doesn't match up defensively. I think Michigan could exploit them. I know they got into a lower scoring game against the Spartans last week. I think this is a different animal. I think Michigan covers the line, but I do feel we blow through the total.
How about every week in the Rat Pack we go over Oklahoma State and some newfound territories? They're getting 24.5 points from Kansas. I mean, who are we hiring there? Is it Bill Belichick going to go over to OK State? Next year, who they got?
I mean,
man, who's taking that job?
Well, I'll tell you what. You want like Pittman wouldn't be bad. I mean, I know Pittman did get it done at Arkansas. How about Eddie Yo?
How about this? Urban Meyer. Come on. Urban Meyer comes back.
Lay it with Kansas.
Lay it with Kansas, an absolute runaway. How about the total, Joe? 52.5. The people can't get enough of it. As high as 55.5 in the marketplace.
Now, Kansas's defense against Oklahoma State, that's completely one-dimensional. I think it shut them down completely. Again, when you look at Kansas now, Leipold, he lost a couple games. Yeah. They need to make a statement.
SportsGrid College Football today. Hour number 1 down. Hour number 2 up next, people. We'll be right back.
What have the Jays done all season long? And you've seen it, Kev, as a fan of the AL East. Yep. They get murdered or lose a heartbreaking game and come back and punch you in the face. Mm-hmm. They're not. It's what, like the old Jays team used to fold, and that's what I used to hate about them. These guys are different. They're like guys you go to war with. It's like, man, you're my buddy. Like, let's go. Like, their clubhouse dynamic, I've never seen a Blue Jay team where everyone gets along.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Apparently, he's a pretty darn good defensive coordinator. The 49ers are decimated by injury. This guy's doing it again. Wade Phillips, Norv Turner, all these guys, there's a lot of great coordinators out there. I'm not so sure Mike McDaniel isn't a real good coordinator, a run game coordinator, a quarterback coach with the 49ers during some Super Bowl years. Maybe he's just not built to be a head coach.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
I think a divorce is coming. I don't think LeBron finishes the year with the LA Lakers. And the trump card he tried to play has backfired on him big time. And I'm here for all the smoke. I got my marshmallows. I got my skewers. I got the fireplace. I'm going to sit back, kicking my feet, and watch the LA dysfunction play out in real time.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
Governor calls you out in the football state. You're out.
And it was so funny, too, because after he fired Kelly on Sunday, right, Woodward released a statement that said that, you know, in effect, that he was still in charge of the athletic department. Well, you didn't check with the governor because apparently he had other plans for the athletic department, and you're not in them.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.